You confessed it. You meant every word. You told God you were sorry, and you meant it. So why is it still there? Why does the weight come back when you're alone? When the music fades? When the prayer ends? If God forgave you, why do you still feel like He's watching you differently? Here's the uncomfortable truth most Christians never say out loud. You can be forgiven and still feel guilty. Not because forgiveness failed, but because your mind hasn't caught up with what God already decided. Think about this. You don't question whether God can forgive. You question whether He still trusts you. And that's where guilt hides. Not in your theology, but in your identity. Because guilt doesn't just say, "That was wrong." It whispers something far more dangerous. That's who you are. And if you believe that, you won't run to God. You'll shrink back. You'll hesitate. You'll stay quiet when you should speak. You'll disqualify yourself before God ever does. But here's what changes everything. God deals with your sin in a moment. But your mind rewrites your story over time. Your memory replays. Your emotions lag behind truth. Your body remembers what heaven already erased. So every time you recall what happened, it feels like evidence, even though the case is already closed. This is why guilt feels so convincing, because it uses real memories to tell a false story. Conviction says, "That was wrong, come back." Guilt says, "That was you, stay back." One leads you closer to God, the other keeps you stuck at a distance. And here's where many believers get trapped. They think holding on to guilt makes them humble. So they punish themselves quietly. They step back from calling. They avoid responsibility. They stay low to prove they're serious. But that's not humility. That's unbelief, dressed up as sincerity. Because if God says you are forgiven, but you insist on carrying shame, you're not agreeing with God. You're arguing with Him. And maybe no one has told you this clearly before. God is not honored by how bad you feel about your sin. He is honored by how fully you trust what Jesus already did about it. Because the cross wasn't partial, it wasn't temporary, it wasn't almost enough, it was final. Which means this: you don't overcome guilt by feeling better. You overcome guilt by believing differently. Not, "I feel clean," but "I am clean." Not, "I deserve another chance." But the price was already paid. And here's the shift most people miss. Before you repented, the enemy wanted you to ignore your sin. Now that you've repented, he wants you to obsess over it. Different strategy, same goal, keep you stuck. Because a believer weighed down by guilt won't step into purpose, won't pray boldly, won't lead, won't move. And the enemy doesn't need to destroy you if he can just keep you doubting who you are. So let's make this simple. If what you're carrying makes you hide from God, it's not from God. If it weakens your confidence, shrinks your faith, and silences your voice, it's not conviction, it's something else. Because when God convicts, He pulls you closer. When guilt takes over, it pushes you away. And maybe that's exactly where you've been living, close enough to be saved, but too far to be free. So here's the moment of decision. You can keep agreeing with your past, or you can start agreeing with God. You can keep replaying what you did, or you can stand on what Jesus did. But you can't live in both. At some point, you have to choose what voice you trust. Because freedom doesn't come when your feelings finally change. It comes when you decide God was telling the truth all along. So stop reopening what heaven already closed. Stop carrying what was already paid for. Stop shrinking when God is calling you forward.